Welcome to Lashback, everyone. I'm Natalyan.
And I'm Phoebe. And this week we're talking about what stops us from achieving our goals. Over to you, Nat.
Yeah, so I think we really wanted to have an episode on like creating, things about creating and what's stopping you. And I always start with like a little quote, or maybe not a quote, a Google AI, paragraph. What's stopping you from achieving your goals? Question mark. The answer is simple. You are the one who sets your own limits, doubts your own abilities, and fears and failure and rejection. You are the one who can change that. Now, that's really broad because there's so many different factors. There could be, time, money, resources, and going back to the quote, confidence. And I also think and we'll get into that more, but societal factors here, like age limits, like why shouldn't you start learning the guitar at 70 years old? Why should you only be doing that when you're younger? Now, it's easier to learn things when you're younger. We all know that. But what's stopping you from doing that? Like, I've always wanted to write a book, and that's something that I've really put in to this year. Whether that's going to be a big seller book, hopefully it will be, but just to kind of get that out, I think that I've got enough to say about my life to make it interesting, if only to myself. So, and being in January is definitely, it's the first month of the year. And, what do we want to achieve from 2025? So I'm going to hand over to you, Phoebe, to let me know your thoughts on that. But keep in mind as well that, I, for one, am definitely somebody who sets so many goals. It's probably too many, which can then be a bit depressing if I don't achieve them. But I think it's good to set goals. What's your thoughts on creating and what's stopping you and what you're not doing, basically?
You've said quite a lot there. I think there is actually around setting realistic goals to begin with, and that's if we say, right, well, I'm going to achieve this massive thing. I'm going to climb Mount Everest by the end of the year, but you've never even walked longer than a mile on a flat surface. You've got a way to go before you're ready and skilled up and tooled up to actually attempt climbing the tallest mountain on this planet. So there is about, we might have a really, really big dream, but then we need to break that down into achievable goals. And that's neurologically speaking, that's about how we can manage our dopamine. If we set a big goal and that's hard to achieve, then we won't be getting any kind of dopamine support by not achieving that goal and it being so long off into the distance. So, for example, I want to release an album, but I don't have any songs. Oh my God, the album's too big. Well, just start by writing a song, just one song. Start by writing the second song. And then you get all these little dopamine hits in the process. And even in writing down a song, you could break down that goal into just come up with some chords, come up with a lyrical concept, play around with it for a little bit. There's loads of sort of smaller goals, and then every single goal you make, you can break it down more and more and more, meaning that you can actually work with your neurology. It's a brain hack to like break it down, because then you
Yeah,
are
definitely.
constantly giving yourself that reward neurochemical in order to keep you motivated and going. But it is also what you said there around what stops you from completing your goals. Well, you. And we said, didn't we, before, around how the stories that we tell ourselves are pivotal in how we deal with and do our lives. If we have a story running on the inside of us that this is going to be really mammoth and difficult, then it's going to be really mammoth and difficult. But if you reframe or retell that story to, this is a really large goal, I'm going to take it slow, I'm going to see how I go, and I'll probably get there in the end, then you're going to have a very different experience of doing all the same tasks. So, we do absolutely stop ourselves.
Yeah.
There is something to say around that, of course, around, changing the way we story our lives does perhaps rely on us healing some past issue, trauma, negativity, bullying, all of those things. So we shouldn't be expecting ourselves to change overnight. But I guess what I'm getting at here is it is possible with the right kind of attention. Practice the right things, my guitar teacher used to say to me. And it is about practicing the right things. Going at stuff from I'm not good enough, so therefore I need to achieve this, versus I quite fancy doing that, let's see how I go, is a completely different story.
Yeah,
It's come from
yeah,
a
I
completely
agree with
different
that.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a big blocker for me is wanting to be the best at everything I do. So my mountain is so high from the beginning that I think, well, if I don't think that I'm going to be the best guitar player, best guitarist, then I'm not going to bother. Which is you're already putting a barrier in place. And
Very
something
different
someone
story.
interesting said to me quite literally, yes, yeah, quite literally yesterday, someone was talking to me about their child who has severe anxiety, which is a tiny bit of autism, but really high functioning, and he calls it executive level. And
Functioning, yeah.
what he's tried to teach her is that there's stress in everything you do, good and bad, and it's just how you kind of manage that different level of stress, but also remembering, going back to your neurological components here, is remembering the feeling of achieving certain things in the small chunks. And I have to definitely teach myself that okay, I've learnt one song, or I've written one page of a book, or I've walked around the neighbourhood twice this week as opposed to zero last week, and I feel really good about that, rather
Yeah.
than making my mountain too high. For me personally, my mountain's always too high.
There's also, excuse me, there's also something in the reason for setting the goal. So the motivation behind a goal, for example, I want to be the best at everything, presupposes that there's a competition, presupposes that there needs to be comparison to other
Agreed.
people and an external reference to, I won't do this unless other people, I won't be successful at this unless other people decree I have been successful at this, which isn't necessarily always the case. I'm going to
Yeah.
do this because I want to do this because it will make me feel better, and maybe other people will notice, maybe they won't. That's very different. I'm not, neither's right
Or
or
you
wrong.
enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the gym every day because
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I want to feel better within my body, versus I'm going to go to the gym every day because I want to be thinner than her over there. Wow, that's a completely different
Yeah. Yeah.
energy. And I always kind of ward against, although I'm a massive culprit of it myself, ward against that kind of compare and despair thing. We talked about this in a previous podcast, didn't we, about growing old disgracefully. You
We
just
did.
do have to live your own path and see and develop the skill. Society doesn't really set us up for this, scrolling on social media. It's all compare and despair, really. So I think we're a bit conditioned
Yeah.
to compare ourselves to other people, but actually there is something about internal reference. If we can develop the muscle of internally validating our efforts and our goals and our experiences and our wins and our failures as learning, then life just become a little bit easier, because you decided, which means you can change your decision equally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
big revelation.
Absolutely.
I had a big revelation a couple of years ago around, wanting. I'd decide I want to do something, and I'd go and tell everybody I wanted to do this thing, and then I realised, it was a huge revelation, that the act of me telling everybody I wanted to do this thing was the actual energy of doing the thing that I had wasted and used up on just talking about it. So I set this little kind of intention for myself that I would only talk about things I had already done, rather than things I wanted to do, because
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree.
wasted it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. And it's funny you say that, because I'm actually really aware of, and this is not in any way boastful. I feel like when I talk to people about something I'm going to do, that I've taken a step towards it and am accountable. But actually what I've found, and this is a personal factor for me, is that I am wasting, you've completely hit the nail on the head, I'm wasting energy talking about it. And I think what resonates with me is, don't say, do, or don't say, show. And
Yeah.
also you run the risk of certain people, negative people in your life, that kind of go up against what you're going to do and say, well, actually, have you really thought about that? That's a lot to do, and that's really going to be hard to do. And it's just negative. So I think just do. and maybe just keep your inner circle closer, which is what I tend to do now, especially like talking about just doing this podcast. We'd really talk about this for a while. Yeah, your inner circle, and my inner circle of my really trusted lifelong friends, whether that's been lifelong time wise or not. When I spoke about talking about podcasts, they were like, "You've always said that, and you've always been great for that, and good luck to you," as opposed to people saying, "Well, you know,
Well, there's a
have
lot
you
of
really thought
podcasts
about
out
that?
there.
You know, there's some really successful people out there." Yeah, yeah. So I
true.
think just do.
And there is that thing as well, you know, without being mean to people, like not everybody's for everybody. And we have I think it's important to know who your people are. Like, I know a lot of people. I come across a lot of people in my everyday life. And there are
You
definitely
do.
inner circle people. That's not me being exclusive. It's like those are the guys I kind of trust with my musings. I'm like, oh, I was thinking I might do this. What do you think? And then there are people that absolutely I'm just going to show them rather than tell in advance. And yeah, there are some people who
Yeah.
are a bit negatively focused. And yet, I might not go to them with a new idea, but
Yeah.
I might go to them for some realism at some point. So it's about knowing who people are and then, you know, accepting them like that and then bearing that in mind when it comes to how you interact with them.
Yeah, and I think it does go back to your history and past and childhood, which you referenced at the beginning of this episode. Because I remember growing up saying I want to be a singer, and even teachers and on the career days at school and stuff were like, well, okay, let's that's great, but what do you really want to do? Let's do a career test. Do you remember those career tests at school?
Yeah.
And I think mine came out as a farmer or something. That couldn't be further from what I am.
I couldn't
Being out,
imagine you
being
being
out
a
at 5
farmer.
a.m. No, but that's what I was told. That's what my test revealed my future to be. And it was really disheartening, really disheartening. And I think that has stuck with me. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a singer. And another thing, talking about creating, is that creating an album, being successful doesn't mean that, and it took me a long time to learn this, doesn't mean that, it has to be a global success where you're as big as Ed Sheeran or whoever.
Taylor Swift, yeah.
The fact you've done the album, yeah, you don't have to. And I am a singer. I'm a professional singer. I get paid to sing. I've had a very successful career that has had different roller coaster moments where I'm doing stuff and then I may not do stuff for 6 months and then I do loads. I am a singer. Just because I have different businesses and different things that I'm interested in and things I make money in, and it's peaks and troughs in different areas, doesn't mean that I'm not a singer.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's
100%.
really stuck with me.
That's the external reference, isn't it? They're kind of like, oh, I'm wanting to be the best.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to be as successful as Taylor Swift, then why would I bother? Well, because, you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there are some people that like to come and hear you sing, and that creates community and connection. And isn't that a beautiful thing? It's a bit capitalistic, isn't it, to equate the reason for doing something creative with its monetary value down the line, when actually I believe it's a bit of
Yeah.
a divine right of us human beings to create. We are absolutely creative, each and every one of us. Because my mum always says, oh, I'm not a creative person. And I say to her, Mum, look at your garden. Her garden and her house are beautiful. So she'll very adamantly say she's not a creative person. But I just disagree with her every time. Like, well, your creativity has gone into the way that she's got these perennial beds. I don't even know what a perennial bed is, but she talks about these perennial beds. She's got these perennial, and they're absolutely gorgeous. Every season of the year, there's something going on because she's thought about it and she's planted those things at the right time and she's made it work. And she
Amazing.
does that because on a nice day she likes to get out there and do some gardening. And there's the fruits of her labour.
That's so
Not
creative.
creative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think literally everybody
No, she's
is
definitely. I can
creative.
even keep my plant alive.
Literally everybody's creative.
Yeah. No,
People in
absolutely.
this
It's just.
world that are depressed or really, really low, I think are because their creative energies are, well, I'm talking in sweeping generalizations here, but oftentimes somebody that's like
Yeah, yeah.
stuck or stagnating in their life or a bit negative or um, prone to depression are because that creative outlet isn't flowing. You know, you just need to make something.
Yeah.
Even if
No,
it's just
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more.
yeah. It
Yeah,
might not be
I
an
literally
album. It
couldn't
might
agree
just be a
more.
stew.
And I had an experience. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's because, again, society puts things in buckets like academia, like, what's success, what's not successful. If you're not
Yeah.
great at school, then you're not great or something. But I had an experience over Christmas, I was traveling around England, as you know, and I was in this pub with friends, like a pub I'd never been in before. And my friend introduced me and she said, she's a singer. And then someone was asking me and I said what I'd done and that. And I focused on the backing vocals and he went, oh, just backing vocals then.
Just.
I went, not it. Yeah, yeah. And he followed that up with, not lead then. And I went, I guess not. When I could have argued that, but I decided it was completely pointless, and that what backing vocals are an absolute and utter incredible skill and a massive achievement of ours. We do that a lot, and I absolutely adore doing backing vocals. It makes me a better singer, harmonizer, collaborator. You don't always have to be the in the limelight. It may be about that singer and their album, and I'm absolutely honoured to add backing vocals to someone's hard work and their talent.
Yeah. And it's
But
backing
talking about
vocals are
negative
very much
energy, that's yeah,
backing vocals are very much a voice as musical instrument rather than deliverer of story or lyrical
yeah,
content. And I think that's, I mean, like, take Motown as an example of music. If one of those songs comes on, I'm not singing along to the lead singer. I'm coming in for the backing vocal because they're really, really well
yeah.
arranged. So it's, yeah, that person that said that to you, bless them. Poor dears. They're only worrying about being in the powerful position of leadership, are they?
I get it.
Well, actually,
That's why I
every role
decided
in
to ignore it.
society, yeah, every role in society has a place. Somebody's got to rule the country and somebody's got to sweep the streets, and everybody is equal in my mind. We all contribute to a thing. That's a very capitalistic
Absolutely.
view, that
We're
person.
all born the same way.
Absolutely. I feel
We're
sorry for
all
that
born the
person.
same way, is what I always. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also just kick off and round off this episode with, where can we find inspiration? Very broad question.
Well,
Can you join groups? Writing groups I find really good, and I've wanted to go on a retreat for a while that my friend does around America, and I'm definitely
retreats are
going to do
great.
it. And what has stopped me doing it is, will I be as good as those people? And I've decided that's ridiculous, and I'm
Imposter
going to do one this
syndrome.
year.
Imposter syndrome, right there. There's another
Yep.
episode on that already.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Because if you don't go and do the practice, then how are you going to get any better? You can't turn up to things and already be good at it.
exactly.
The other places for inspiration I
No,
find are like looking out the
absolutely.
window. That's great. Staring at the ceiling. That's pretty good. Going for a walk in nature. Um, in There was a song I wrote last year, toward the end of last year, that I was kind of struggling to get started with. So I doodled. I actually drew little sketches, and then I found words. So I think you can go across different artistic. If what you want to get inspired on is a creative or artistic output, you might have a sonic idea, like for a song or whatever. You can start from a visual strategy, or often if I'm struggling with writing, like in the day job, sort of writing more technical stuff, I'll go for a walk, and it's in the movement of my body that I then come up with the point and the kind of the angle which I'm going for, that's going to just make the whole thing flow out of the fingertips. I think other ways are about
Yeah,
thinking about your energies and your week. Like if you kind of have a dip in the afternoon in your energy, then don't plan to start something that's going to be taxing in the afternoon. If you're good in the mornings or you're good in the evenings or whatever, then work with your own
that's a good tip.
energy. Yeah, and task batch. If you know what task batching is, that's a thing that transformed
I
my
love that.
life.
You introduced me to that word,
Yeah,
wording. Yeah, I
bring
think so.
different
And I
things
think
together.
being ready. Yeah, I think being ready is a key one for me. Again, I can only talk from my personal experience, but I I even said this to my business partner the other day about a document we had to do for a client. And I said, no, I need some reflection time. Because if I sit there and just start typing, it's like trying to write a book. When people talk about writer's block and they're just writing one word, one word, you're just going mad in your head. You're better off just taking a break and reflecting. And I reflect a lot when I walk,
Yeah,
and I make a lot of notes on my phone as I'm going through when I'm out with friends and I'm at my best where I'm, bubbly and funny and what I call the Natalie perfect moment where I'm feeling confident, I'm with good people, I'm feeling me, and it flows and I write notes. And then when I'm ready, it comes when I'm ready. But
yeah,
scheduling is key for me. And like, what do you call it? Task bundling,
batching.
batching.
Yeah,
I think love that.
yeah,
That works for me.
yeah. It is. It's a really good thing. So if you haven't heard of task batching, listeners, then give it a Google because it's a really useful thing. It's like the notion of putting similar tasks together in blocks. So if you've got a lot of phone calls to make, or you've got a lot of, I don't know, financial admin, don't
Yeah.
scatter those things apart. Set out a block of an hour or two and do them all together because that works with the executive functions in the prefrontal cortex of our brain and what's being engaged at the same time. Reflecting by staring out the window, going for a walk, staring at the ceiling. I always used to joke my best ideas came from the ceiling. Oh, oh yeah. So it's like,
Well, I think, yeah. Yeah, I
you
think
know,
actually.
work with what you know about yourself. And if you've got questions about whether that would work or not, then do something that helps you get to know yourself a little bit better.
Absolutely, and I think we'll wrap up this episode now. But I think we reference in a New Year episode about like vision boards as well, which work really well for me, and that can be words or images. So if you haven't done one for January already, whatever that is fine. It could be minimal, it could be large, inspiration and ambitions or small things. And looking at that every day really inspires me. So. Um,
Yeah.
Go for it. January is
Okay.
should be a positive month. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, exactly.
There's so
So
much to
thank you
say
for
on this
listening,
topic.
everybody. Let us know your thoughts. There is, and we will go back to this topic. We're definitely going to be delving more into topics, but let us know, listeners, what your creative things are that you want to do or aren't doing. Just get engaged with us, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
We will.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye bye.